Welcome back, listeners. This is the Hip Pause Podcast. You're here with your host. My name's Iman. On the phone to my right, not actually in the room, is my co-host, David. Say hello, David.
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm not actually to your right. I'm to the north because I'm far away from you.
Just for the record, I didn't ask how you were doing. Okay, so if you can keep that kind of information to yourself in future, thank you. very much.
It's a 0.5 podcast. We don't care about how each other are doing.
It is a short one this week, and actually next week, I gotta say we're not gonna have an episode for you. But the following week, we got the big number 50. It's not big; it's a big number. I need to, David keeps warning me about hyping it up.
Yeah, big number, small podcast.
It's a big number, small podcast. Fine. But yeah, so we just got a little short episode for you this week. So we may still do some of the old traditions, such as the watch times from both of us. But mostly we're going to be talking about podcasts on YouTube. In other words, YouTubers who decide they're not making enough money from ads, fair enough, no problem with that, no problem, and think, hey, podcasts are a great way to make money. Let's do it. You know what?
I like money, therefore I will.
And I've got a few, overall, I support the whole thing. I'm kind of giving you, spoilers here. Overall, I support it. I'm fine with it. But I have a few points I don't like about the whole concept, okay? It's lazy, basically. But let's before we get into that, let's do our time watched for the week.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I
will also say that the list of YouTubers who do podcasts that we're going to talk about, I am actually fans of in the YouTube space. It's just how everyone's migrating towards it is why we're going to bring up some points.
Absolutely. Okay, so I feel like my watch time this week is going to be really poor because I just haven't had that much. I've been traveling, I haven't had that much of an opportunity to watch YouTube. So let's see. Oh my god. Oh, I don't even want to say these numbers. These are so poor. My goodness. I'm honestly a little embarrassed. This is oof.
Are you even ready for this podcast? Oh my gosh, with that
god. This is terrible. I mean, like I said, I've been traveling, okay? I have not had the time for YouTube. Okay, but anyway, you start with your today.
1 hour, 6 minutes.
Okay, my today is actually a little bit better than that. 1 hour, 19 minutes. So that's something at least. Yesterday, David.
1 hour, 34.
Yesterday, I have 17 minutes.
Ooh, okay. Someone didn't watch a podcast yesterday.
Yeah.
Did, that's why.
Okay, give me the big one, the past week.
Past week, 8 hours, 9 minutes.
Damn, not bad. I mean, it's not the double digits we're used to, but it's not bad. But hear mine. I'm gonna honestly. I don't even want to say. It's that bad. 4 hours, 34 minutes past week. Oof.
Yikes! So I did double.
Yeah, you literally did double. Yeah, and by the way, that's about a quarter of what I did maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 episodes ago.
I won't forget that week. That was crazy.
So it's been a bad week for YouTube. Daily average, mine's 39 minutes. Poor.
1 hour 10 for me.
So what kind of we're not going too much into this, but what kind of stuff have you been watching?
Honestly, not that much because. Not that I've been traveling to your extent, but I've been watching a lot of Samsung S10 Plus videos, reviews and unboxing and all that stuff. Which, by the way, Glyphix does reviews on YouTube, just saying. And then I ended up watching more, or the same of that Samsung US YouTube channel where they make fun of Apple. I'll link one of them, but they're very 30-second videos of just people coming to the Apple store and be like, so if I upgrade to Samsung, would I have that? No, you use Apple, of course you won't have that.
We spoke about that before. Are they still making those?
No. I just rewatched them.
Fair enough. Yeah.
As soon as you type Samsung, it just recommends you anything.
I see. You spent a few £100s on a phone, and now you're want to justify it as much as possible. So
yeah, watching 1-year-old videos.
Yeah. I've mostly been watching. So the last few days, I've been watching a lot of Japanese street food cooking. So there's this thing called. I've got such a craving right now. In fact, there's this thing called takoyaki. By the way, Pink Guy actually makes it in one video where he's rapping and stuff. But anyway, regardless of that, it's basically little dumpling balls with squid inside.
Oh, yes.
You know the ones?
We used to, when we used to go to Comic-Con, that would be the tradition we would get. Did you never have some with?
I never knew, when we got them, I never knew what they actually were. Like, I never knew it was squid. Like, is it actually, the ones that we got, I don't know if they were actually squid.
Yeah, that's a fair point, considering it's a convention. But yeah. I think it was.
But anyway, I've got a real craving for them at the moment. Just watching, like, videos, people making them in the streets. It's so, yeah, it's cool. It's just cool.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah, apart from that, like, as you've heard from my numbers, have not been watching that much. But let's move on to the main topic at hand, which is YouTubers doing podcasts. You know. What else do I have to say? Yeah. I mean, I got a lot to say.
There's loads doing it. And I know we've talked about YouTubers moving to, like, making music because it's like you're going to get, like, 4 times the views you get on your normal videos because it's like music. It's easy, it's clickable, it's shareable, and we get it. Everyone did that because it's lazy. Just get a good editor to make your sound, your music sound good.
But here's the thing: I would argue that music is actually not the lazy route. Like music, I would say is actually relatively difficult to make. Even
if you're not trying.
Yeah, even Jake Paul, who literally will make a song and a music video in one day, like that's still that is a big expense. Like it's still expensive to do that stuff, and it's still quite complicated. You still got to get all your music on all the different platforms. You know, you probably got to have some kind of a publisher, agent, something like that. Like it's relatively, I would honestly say it's relatively difficult to do. I mean, there's a laziness aspect to it, but it's not nearly on the same level as a podcast. So a podcast, literally you don't even need a topic, and that's one of the things that happens so often with these YouTubers and their podcasts. Like they don't even have a topic, they don't have a format, they don't have anything. They just go, yeah, you know what? It's just gonna be me, 3 of my friends, and we'll just record it and put it, and we'll just talk for an hour and a half and like just put it on our channels and whatever, get it on podcast apps, which is really easy to do, by the way.
Yeah,
it's like there's nothing wrong with it, but I just wish that the YouTubers, I'm basically giving the conclusion first, but I wish that YouTubers would have more would see the bigger picture, would like see the bigger opportunity and actually make something that is worthy of the following that they have. It's like it's like they're mostly, not everyone, but mostly are aiming for, they hear podcasts and they go, right, okay, let's just aim for the absolute easiest, bottom of the barrel, laziest possible way we could do this. And it's like, it's crazy. So one of the reasons that a lot of YouTubers are turning to this is because of the impact of the adpocalypse and like not making as much money from YouTube directly. Podcasts are a really good place to like monetize stuff because you can actually have ads, you have sponsors, and you actually, go through ads during the show, and they're not just any old ad. It's not just like, blah, pre-recorded thing. Well, some are, but usually it's like, okay, we'll talk about the product or service for 5 minutes, and we'll, it'll be wrapped into like normal conversation. So people will sit there and listen to it because it's part of the conversation. Like it's interesting or funny or entertaining.
And advertisers or, that allow these sponsors, I wouldn't say are more inclined to choose podcasts as a revenue or an advertising stream, but they do know that skipping an ad on YouTube is a lot easier than skipping it on a podcast because you don't want to like miss anything important.
Yeah, Absolutely, absolutely. And if the podcaster is doing their job well and they're actually making it entertaining, the conversation about the sponsor, it's like you don't want to skip it. Fair enough. Like this is kind of it's kind of funny, kind of interesting. So the issue I have with it is I would say that there's two types. There's the there's the YouTuber who makes a podcast which is literally, okay, how can we make this in the easiest, fastest, laziest possible way? And then there's the YouTuber who says, let's actually make something that's good and is, takes more effort and is more difficult, but let's still just call it a podcast because, I don't want that kind of pressure of having something like that. So I don't know. Let's go through a few examples to try and kind of
and then we'll end it with the Hit Pause podcast being the last example.
Yeah. So firstly, the second angle where it's like this is more than a podcast, but you're calling it a podcast, so you have an excuse to be a bit lazy and take the pressure off. And the number one culprit for that is the H3H3 podcast. So they have this like fantastic format where they've got this great room with a big table in it and a TV at the end, and they get guests on. Like they get good guests on as well, and they will basically interview them, but it's very light, it's very loose, it's very casual kind of interview. Then they'll get some videos on the screen and they'll watch them and talk about them, things like that. They've even in the past gotten music artists to come and play live on the show. They have it's awesome, and
that is actually kind of popular as well.
With
podcasters that do it. Like I know I'm kind of going away from the subject matter because on funnyordie.com they run a podcast, and they're not YouTubers, they're just an internet source like comedy, college humor. Like they just have their own website where they put comedic videos on, and they make their own platform, and their podcasts specifically get like individual and like independent artists to actually be music for the podcast, to make it almost like a radio station, and it's like you get a whole package with it. So the H3 thing.
That's cool, exactly. So when H3 did it, it's like they had the band there in the studio, and like it's not just a room. They have a whole back room with. They've got about 3 members of staff. One guy is a full-on producer. Then they've got a couple they've got an intern. They've got, I think, a couple of interns, and those guys basically look after the quality of the show, and they make sure they feed information through, and they make sure everything's going smoothly. But they also kind of chime in. The format is almost exactly a late night talk show, like David Letterman or any of those ones that are big in America. Like it's the same thing. Like that's literally where they've gotten it from, but they still call it a podcast, and
rightfully so. But with a YouTuber's influence to give us more than the creative of just like 2 people in a room or 3 or whatever or more, just with a microphone and just talking blah 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 all day long.
Exactly. Like they are doing more. They're doing more than that. Like it's an impressive format, and the quality and the way it's put together is really good. I just wish they would say, you know what? Yeah, this is a TV show. This is the H3. This is the H3H3 show. And I don't know, it was like it would make them push it even more. But by just calling it a podcast, it's just them being like, you know what, I don't want the pressure. Like I get it, I get that. You don't want to go too much, and it's like you can still put it out on podcast platforms. It's fine, but why not call it the show? It's like do more. Why are you aiming for podcast when you're already so far beyond that? Like you're already doing so much more.
I don't think we're like expecting too much of YouTubers, because like I know I mentioned before this podcast that I have 2 points on it. There's like one, maybe the YouTuber themselves flush out content that is just like high energy, blah, blah, blah. And the podcast is their way to be themselves. So it's going to be laid back. It's going to have no energy or like no commitment. It's just, it's me doing me. So you get to know the real me. And then there's the second point where I feel a YouTuber knows that they're taking a podcast seriously when they make a separate YouTube channel for their podcast.
Yes.
That's almost the definition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually a really good point. It's like, okay, guys, come on. Like, let's take this seriously now, you know? So the other person I'll mention who is sort of on this spectrum, on this end of the spectrum, is actually Logan Paul. The Impulsive podcast, like, is... The quality, like, it's well done. You know, they've got a dedicated room. They get good guests in. The format is like, is maybe a little less professional than the H3 one.
I'd say that.
But, like, again, they're going for that. They're aiming for something that's a bit more than a podcast, but they're still calling it a podcast. It's like, guys, like, do it, go next level, like push it, do it, go big. Like, it's quite unlike Logan, actually, to be honest. I was quite surprised when I found out about, like, okay, this is actually, I mean, Logan, this is not really like him, you know, but, so on the other side of things, are the ones that really kind of actually annoy me, but it's not that I don't enjoy the podcast or enjoy the people, but okay, so the thing that spurred this whole thinking process in my mind was Dunkey. So Dunkey's a big YouTuber we've mentioned like a few times. We've never actually had a dedicated episode with him in, but he's a very popular, very big, like 5 mil plus subscribers. He's a gaming channel. Like, he's one of the few gaming channels that started off as a gaming channel and is still a gaming channel like years later. Like, he still makes videos about games, and he's been around for
never
ages.
Ever had, I don't want to say a bad video, but a video that doesn't get the views you expect. He's just really reliable on giving us something we need.
Yes, absolutely. Now, he recently started his own podcast called The Dunk Tank. So
The Dunk Tank. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's honestly, this is maybe one of the worst offenders that I've seen in terms of just bottom of the barrel, really quite kind of lazy. I mean, he's made his own. He's made a separate channel for it. So
okay. So that ruins my whole idea. Like, if you make a separate channel, it shows that you're interested.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it does. You know, you're right though. Like, it does. It shows. Okay, you're actually wanting to give this a go. But okay, if you're wanting to give it a go, then maybe do a little bit more. So it's literally got the whole podcast has no format. It was entertaining. Do not get me wrong. It has no format. There's no, like, this is the topic of discussion. It's just like, okay, games, kinda. But they had no, you know, there was no notes. There was nothing. It was just like conversation between Dunkey, his fiance Leah, and a couple of other guys. I forget the names now. But basically just talking, just having a conversation. And, like, that's fine. That is usually what a podcast is. But guys, like, why not do more? You know?
Yeah.
So it's Video Game Sean and King Woaz. I don't actually know them before this.
Because my thing is, if they did this specifically, like, outside of YouTube, and they did it that way, I would have no complaints. But they are YouTubers. And I don't know if Dunkey, in any shape or form, has his Dunkcast on YouTube. If you are putting it on YouTube and you are a YouTuber, I personally think the same effort you put in your videos should be more or less the same effort, however that looks creatively, on your podcast videos.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, yeah, absolutely. So the minimal effort that they did put in on this is basically whenever they were talking about mostly, you know what? It was actually ridiculous. Like the video on YouTube was literally just random gameplay from Rocket League, just random gameplay in the background from Rocket League.
Not related to what they're talking about.
No, they did not mention that game. And
okay, but we have to be fair because one, this links to two things. Remember when Donkey was on Total Biscuits podcast and we were like, wow, he's not really being involved. And not to mention Total Biscuit does do reviews on stuff where he just shows random gameplay. That's not even related to what he's talking about.
I know.
Is that us being strong or is that actually an issue?
Okay, look. Again, like it's actually not an issue. Like it's actually honestly fine. The thing that I'm upset about is that like I want more. Like these are people that I love to watch and really respect as creators. So when I see H3 and they're calling it a podcast and I'm like, guys, like I want so much more from you. Like I believe you can do so much more. And when it comes to Donkey, it's like Donkey's style is very loose, so I'll give him that. Like he doesn't have a polished style, but I would like to see a bit more. It's like you have this huge following, you have the connections, the contacts, the background. You are able to make this more than what you're going in with,
than what you're giving, because you're known for good edits, good production value. So why doesn't that show in the podcast?
And then all they do is like some random gameplay, and they do clip in when they're talking about a specific game, they clip in a few little images, little clips here and there. But I want more. Basically, my standards are too high. Okay.
Yeah, and it's only high because we know what could be. So we've obviously mentioned H3 putting effort. Mm-hmm. Logan's impulsive. That's dedicated much more than his dumb Twitch idea. Yeah. He's actually putting effort. He's got the video podcast versus the audio where there's more Q&A. Like, there's time and effort. But then you've got Donkey, and I know we're going to mention more, like Smosh, who have recently started. I think they've done like 3 podcasts so far.
What is their one like?
Their one is, I mean, look, we are going to remember our first podcast. No one has a full-on structure on day one, but I think we're rightfully allowed to say, Smosh, you have 23 million subs. You've been around, you've seen the game. Mm-hmm. I would trust you to give us a better podcast than their podcast on their first day. There's a really structure.
Yeah, like we set the bar low. We had 0.
Yeah. And they're putting highlights on their main channel, because it's going back to what I say. When you aren't giving it a dedicated channel and you're actually putting stuff like Niga Higa does on your actual main channel, it just shows that you're not confident in your second channel doing well, that you need where most of your followers are to know about it,
Yeah, exactly.
But,
So, there's a couple more I want to mention. I actually have an example of like the lazy style where I honestly actually think it really works. And that is, it's called The Official Podcast. And it's the podcast of Critical, otherwise known as Penguin Zero.
Yay.
And him and basically his friends. So the reason that this works with him in particular, and the format is literally just, there is no video whatsoever, not even clips or anything like that. It's literally just like, it is a dedicated podcast, and like that is absolutely it. They're not trying to make it into, although they put it on YouTube, they are absolutely not trying to make it a YouTube thing that you would actually sit and watch. Absolutely, it's a podcast. Like, a podcast is about the audio, okay? I guess that's kind of interesting. That's actually kind of the distinction. It's like, if you're gonna make a podcast, then you're all about the audio and like that's it.
Yeah, your focus should be audio. If you're doing above and beyond, I expect a TV show, and I get it. If you use the word podcast for the sake of that's what people know it as.
Yeah. So with their one, it's literally no format. It's just them just chatting, basically. Or not basically, it literally is them just chatting. But I don't know, it's a group of friends who have known each other for a long time. They get along very well. It is entertaining. Like that is a good podcast. And I guess it's because most of the other guys aren't really very well known, so it's not as if you kind of have expectations of them. But then Critical, who obviously has a couple million followers, and I'm a fan of, his style is like even more basic than Donkey. Even like it is literally just talking to the camera, and all the entertainment is no edits. It's just stream of consciousness, him just talking off the cuff kind of thing. And that's why the podcast works well, because that is it. Like that's his entire selling point, translates to a podcast perfectly.
Yeah, fully agree.
And then the addition of like of the other guys that with him and stuff is good. So, you know, it's so difficult. It's such a difficult thing. Like, I realize why all these guys are doing it. It makes sense. But if you're going to do a podcast, This is my final conclusion, okay? We're going to wrap up this episode soon. But my final conclusion is, if you're going to do a podcast, fine, good. Going to make some money. Do a podcast, okay? Do an audio podcast. If you want to do something more, then go all in. Like, do it. Have the balls to actually go, you know what? Yeah, we're going to make it a show. We're going to actually go all in. We're going to make this thing a show. It's going to be a visual show. It's
going to be interactable, visual, and entertaining.
We're going to get people on. We're going to get music on. We're going to have a real format. We're going to actually have questions set up. We're going to have notes. Maybe we'll have a producer in the back. Like, let's go all out. Like, this is the Logan Paul show. This is the H3H3 show. Like, don't give me a half-assed version of that and call it a podcast just so you have a pass. It's just like, no, that's going to make it easier for me to do because people have lower expectations. It's like go all out. Like, we believe in you. You know, you already have a fan base. We already like you. We're going to give you, even if it isn't perfect, we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. We're going to be into it. We're going to like that you're trying something different. I tell you what, the first person that actually does that, and I have not seen it happen yet at all, but the first person that actually does that is going to be doing well, you know? It's going to be doing well. Just someone needs to come along with the balls to actually do it and go, you know what, we're going to actually take a risk. We're going to try something that is more difficult.
Yeah. And I know we just cover YouTubers. Like, I'm really curious about Twitch as well, because that's something you stare at and you have to be like a little bit more into it to like stay focused, because it's not audio, you're actually watching it live. But I do want to be surprised by people who show their style in their podcast, because we can name loads, like Mark Donor, who's a YouTuber / Instagrammer and Viner. He has his own Living Large podcast. I do actually like watching it. There's obviously Smosh, there's Ray William Johnson. There's loads of YouTubers doing it that I don't get them in the podcast, you know? Like, what's the point if I don't see you in the podcast? Yeah. And I feel like if you're going to make it visual, give us you and let us see it. If it's audio only, no complaints from me.
Yeah, if it's audio only, then decide that and go, you know what? Yeah, fine. That's what we're doing. We're doing that, Anyway, so I think that about wraps up my thoughts. Any final points, David?
No. I mean, there's some good ones out there. I'll link my favorite YouTubers who podcast. I mean, it's up to you guys to like decide if that was like the good one or the bad one. But the YouTubers I listen to that have podcasts, I'll link them. But that's it from me.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for listening. Do subscribe. We have our episode number 50 coming up. After episode number 50, we'll be going into... Wait, what season are we in now? We're in season 5 right now. So after episode number 50, we're going to be going into season 6. We're going to have a whole new format. We're going to be doing...
Whoa, bold
Yeah. We will. If for anyone that isn't a long-time listener, every season, each season is 10 episodes, every season we change the format up. So season 1, we had quizzes. Season 2, we chose categories, etc.
I'm really seeing if you remember the whole history of seasons.
I really don't. But anyway, next season we're going to be having a whole new format. Subscribe to us now. Get our episode number 50, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you for listening.
All right. See ya.